It's vehicle cam, and I'm good with it because the thing that's great about Sam is not only is he a nationally renowned reporter, if there was a Mount Rushmore of connected NBA reporters, he would certainly be on that list.
Yep.
And yet he still makes time to join us via nostril cam every Thursday when he's in the middle of being a dad. Good morning, Sam.
Good morning. If you have, a nanny you can send my way or a driver, we can fix this issue. But I'll be home in about 30 seconds. Sorry for the Tesla cam.
We flexaroni. We actually have a quick question for you. Jason and I have decided, along with Chris, there is a 118 acre parcel of land that includes a 3,600 foot house, a big farmhouse, a garage with all kinds of stuff you can do projects in. It's got a river that runs through the property that has trout and gold, and it has a huge modernized ready for profit weed farm on it. It's 65 miles east of Sacramento. It's going for, I think it's $7-9 million. Sam's or Jason's in, Chris is in, I'm in. Kelly Brothers, who was on just before you, he's in. We're just going to go through all the way till Friday when we get Greg Papa on. And what do you think? I mean, you got kid in college, another kid on the way in college. You're always you're good with your money. You're looking for investments. What do you say?
No, I like it. I mean, you got to, give me a rough number at some point. We'll connect off the air. I like fishing. I like land. I don't know how much I like all of you that much.
Good.
Wow.
Wow. Well, I can give you a rough number right now. I think let's say it's I don't know I can't remember what it was. Let's say it's 9 million.
I think it was almost like 7 though. We remember how great of a deal. Yeah.
Let's call it 7 million. So we'll split it equally, and your share would be about 6.95 million, and we'll cover the rest of it. But we'll split everything equally.
I was never very good at math, but I feel like I'm getting the short end of the stick there.
No, he said equally.
Yeah.
Equally. We'll do all the work equally, and you've got that athletic money. We can't compete with that.
Sure.
Okay.
I'm in.
All right.
I like it.
All right. Well,
you're trying to put me out to pasture. I think we're too young to be talking about the next phase. What's happening here?
Let me get into the real talk here with a very we'll smooth our way into the interview. We'll give you an easy one since you're still driving. Who are the Kings going to trade for?
Giannis Antetokounmpo.
Okay. Wow. Yeah. Print that.
You heard it here first. I mean, well, interesting. We're still fairly early in the trade deadline, season. The Jimmy Butler stuff this week is nothing really unexpected has happened yet. You can forecast these things. I guess I'm going to start with the bigger names. It's when Jimmy didn't get an extension done with the Heat and, went into his last year before free agency, then barring some sort of gangbusters Heat start where they were leading the Eastern Conference, you could have seen this coming. That's going to be front and center. The Pelicans have a disaster, obviously, with some of their guys. So I don't know the answer to your question on the Kings. I do think, and their decision makers are not a monolith, if that makes sense. So I don't know across the board how they might see it. But recently I've been, I guess the feedback that I've gotten that I thought was fascinating was that there's still a fairly high level of confidence in this core that they have, which at least for now lends me to believe that, the discussions are probably more focused on, improving around the edges more than they are adding a high profile piece.
Sam, as we're talking with Sam Amick from The Athletic, brought to you by our friends at Jiffy Lube. Sam, you brought up Jimmy, and I know he's not really connected to the Kings, but I mean, his name is out there. LeBron's name is kind of being thrown out a little bit. How serious would those talks be with someone like, well, Jimmy, I guess you gave some hints to there that could be something, but even LeBron's name being mentioned, how out there is that?
I mean, for now it's fairly out there, but again, the stuff.
Sam's still connected to
the Warriors. Rather came after him last year or during the summer or deadline. I'm sorry, I'm with y'all. And they, showed the interest, and LeBron and his camp turned it down. And so now the Warriors, still need a guy like that. The Warriors still need to surround Steph Curry with talent, and they haven't solved their problem, so they might revisit it. So then you have to kind of assess where are the Lakers at, and the truth is they're not really any better off than they were back then either. So to me, it feels like a Warriors or bust situation, and you're going to have to wait to see what both teams look like at that time. The thing with him that there's so many obstacles. Like, first of all, he loves living in LA. He's got such an incredible ecosystem around him, from his production company to his family's lifestyle to, oh, by the way, his son is on the team. All that stuff comes into play. But, I do think it's worth monitoring.
Do you, and this is such an unfair question, Sam, I'm totally asking for your instinct, and I'm not trying to set you up to be wrong. I won't hold you to it, but does this feel like it's going to be an overactive, underactive, or fairly normal trade season if you were betting money?
I mean, between the Jimmy stuff, the Pelican stuff, the Bulls, Zach LaVine is still a guy that I think it's interesting, because I think that calculus with him is probably out of whack at this point, where teams continue to act as if, they need to get something in return for taking on his contract. But, he's a pretty damn good player. So, is Zach going to be on the move? It could be a fair amount. I think part of it is when you have the kind of parity that the league has right now, and that honestly they've kind of built this thing to the system to be, encourage parity, that breeds hope, and hope breeds action at the trade deadline. So if I had to pick one direction or the other, it'd probably be leaning towards more active.
Sam, you brought up the Pelicans. Kings play them tonight. We know the Kings had all sorts of trouble with them last year. Their record is obviously a byproduct of just way too many injuries. I feel like they kind of had an aggressive offseason and getting some upgrades there. At least they thought, in DeJounte Murray, and they were hoping to make, I would assume, a run, but it's not gone that way at all. Is that just, hey, let's look at Ingram because he's not going to get extended, or could they do a lot more there and even possibly entertain the idea of something with Zion down the line?
Yeah, they could. It's just it's a train wreck. You know what I mean? Like the whole plan is blown up at this point. And Dave Griffin, a longtime tenured executive, won a championship with Cleveland. He knows what he's doing, but, I can't remember a situation where you're just looking at, the plan and saying, like, it's outside of his control. All of these Kings fans know better than anybody, like, how much potential this Pelicans group had with how they beat the Kings, 6 times last year. But now all of a sudden, Zion looks to be a guy you can't rely on. The hamstring being an issue for so long, he fires his agent and an agency, CAA, which, really, considering he's not in a contract year, the only reason you do that is because you're, upset about the way your situation was handled, or, you're trying to get somewhere else. So, the Ingram stuff, the DeJounte Murray deal just being irrelevant now, and you lost Dyson Daniels in the process, which is crazy considering how good he's been. So, I don't know. Everybody I've talked to on the Zion front, they're not out there shopping him, and it feels like to me that they're going to stick it out with him. but BI is looking for greener pastures, and certainly looking to get out of there. He also had an agency change and went over to Clutch recently as well.
Sam Amick of The Athletic joining us. Sam, we referenced your article early in the week about the front offices and the rankings of the front offices. And according to you, the Sacramento Kings were not even in the top 20 of NBA front offices. In fact, the Washington Wizards even were in the top 20. I want to make clear this was your opinion and your opinion alone. So
suck.
it was to be fair, it was, I think you said you talked to you and your two partners on the article. I think about 40 front office members, coaches, etc. Seriously, though, the Kings weren't in there. And look, you had the coach of the year and the GM of the year 2 years ago. Now the Wizards are getting a vote over them, not to pick on them. What do you think that's a reflection of, that drop that quickly, as you logged in twice, I think, when I think Sam put his computer in, and we're having a little bit of a difficulty because he just, nope, there he's back now. Sam, I was asking, what's that a reflection of?
I mean, yeah, it was to give you the process. It was 40 executives, and we did, for the sake of wanting to have credibility on it, we were pretty stubborn about trying to get either number one or number two front office people to weigh in. And there were a handful of number threes. So just so that people realize this is not a matter of like, let's get a scout at the bottom of the food chain to give their opinion. These are their front office people who kind of run the league from a personnel standpoint. Even with that, I mean, I'm not trying to completely duck your question, because obviously every team would love to be high on this list, and their fans certainly would love their team to have their front office high on the list. There's still some puzzling moves here, where are choices where you look at it, and some folks griped about the fact that OKC wins by a landslide despite, Sam Presti not having ever won a championship. He's been doing it since 2007. And if you look at the numbers, it's like, man, it wasn't even close. As far as the Kings are concerned, I don't know what to kind of, to assign to it as far as why. They are on the downturn right now. Like you said, the hype was all a year and a half ago, and it's been kind of a steady decline ever since then. I think while the Sabonis trade put them down this road that broke their playoff drought and did a lot of good things, he is a divisive player within the league. As you guys know, maybe that plays a part. I don't know. I personally did not have anybody the fun part, that's a weird word to put on it, of doing this project is that, we publish all the good stuff, but of course there was a little trash talk along the way where executives shared, kind of their disparaging views of other front offices. I did not run into, any Kings slander, or really any Kings perspective at all. But yeah, I mean, the results speak for themselves. If they were making moves left and right that people were impressed by, and had the kind of process that people envied, then they would have been on the list.
Sam, a follow-up on that. So league people think he's a divisive player. Like, what's the thought behind that with Sabonis?
I guess my feeling is that the Halliburton Sabonis trade was the defining move of this front office. That is the biggest swing they have taken. That is the trade that put them down this path. So I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of, another executive who is trying to, decide what they think of the work the Kings did. And, to me, it really comes down to that. Maybe you're going to think about DeRozan, and that's it. Like, because that's that's kind of who this team is at this point. And when you talk about the front office, Fox was here before, you're not gonna kind of have that be part of the calculus. I just think that, people not being, again, you're kind of asking me to read the minds of the people who voted.
Sure.
But I think that's a big one.
Okay, so I mean, honestly, and I'm not saying you're saying this, I'm not saying anyone else is, but let's talk it out. Is Hassan Whiteside and Andre Drummond are two guys that, if you look at their career stats, especially rebounding, are tremendous. And though they never sniffed Domantas Sabonis's numbers when it comes to assists, when it comes to scoring, field goal percentage, rebounds, there are similarities, and those two players probably referred to as much, if not more, than any other players. They were often referred to as empty calories. Great stats, great regular season. When it comes down to it, you'd rather have a Derek White than a lot of these other guys that you can just plug into a championship team. and I'm asking you to guess here, but do you think part of the divisiveness with Sabonis is, hey, great regular season guy, great teammate, nice dude. When it comes down to the playoffs, they can diffuse him a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, yes. Now you're just trying to hit on the conversation about Domas, and yes, there is a feeling in some circles that it's kind of the idea that if he is your number one or your number two, that you're going to have a ceiling on what you can do. You're going to win a lot of games, but it gets complicated because the way that he plays, he is really only at his best if he is a one or a two. If he's a three, then his usage is down. And honestly, not that, I mean, he's still he and Fox are 1 and 1A, but with DeMar coming to town this year, you are seeing, less of the DHOs, less of the, all things run through Domas offense. So, his skill set, what he brings to the table and what he's so incredibly good at is it's a team game, right? So there's always that analysis of, how much of, if you have the offensive workload looking like a pie chart, just how much of that pie chart should go to Domas. And if that is the strategy you take, then how far can you take that?
Are there any similarities, Sam, would you say, to that thought process and maybe even DeRozan as well?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's it's a different, a different style of how to do it. I mean, DeMar is a bucket getter. I will add though, as well, it's funny having gone to Kings practice this week and listened to Mike Brown. He's in my head right now because I can hear him going, guys, we're sixth in offense, like that in terms of this team. It is interesting. And I think I have reached the point where I agree with him that their offense is interesting to talk about because, when the Jazz rolled through, their radio man does a great job. David Locke had shown me some stats about how the Kings DHOs are just down drastically, for Keegan and Kevin Huerter and those guys. They are just getting a whole lot fewer Domantas Sabonis, kind of gift wrapped wide open looks than they did last year and the year before. And so he was really getting into the weeds on the Kings offense. And it is an interesting conversation to have. And then you kind of take a step back from it and you go, oh, wait a minute. Until the Utah game, I think they were 17th in defensive rating. That game actually spiked them up to 13th. If Kings fans are actually looking for a little sliver of hope here, their analytics right now look like a team that should be 5 games over 500.
Yep.
It's not a dumpster fire by any means. The numbers are pretty good, and they've lost some close games, and they're paying a price for that. But the focus, I think, first and foremost, going into the deadline, has got to be, who could we add? Who's going to help us on the other end?
Well, let me underline your point, Sam, without getting too nerdy here. The Kings, as you just mentioned, are 6th in offensive rating. Maybe even more surprisingly, not talked about enough, they're 13th in defensive rating, which gives them an overall rating of 10. They're 12 and 13. The team just above them, the Orlando Magic, is 17 and 10, followed by the Warriors, the Mavs, the Knicks, the Rockets, the Grizzlies, the Celtics, the Cavs, and the Thunder. I mean, these are all teams that are 17 and 8, 19 and 5, 14 and 10. Then you have the Kings that are 12 and 13. As a matter of fact, you have to go down the net rating list to 19th, and the Detroit Pistons, who by the way are 10 and 15, that's the first team on that list that's under 500. So numerically, as you just said, I'm just underlining your point. It's one of those things where all the numbers are saying one thing, but the wins and losses, if the Kings were a stock, in other terms, I think the Kings would be a heavy, heavy buy at this point.
I tend to agree, and we'll see if this segment ages well or not. But I'm starting to feel like, listen, when you add a piece that is as unique as DeMar to, like we just chronicled, another piece that is so unique like Sabonis, Fox, what he does, that's more of today's NBA. He's not a unique player. I mean, he's an incredible player, but his skill set is not, that is plug and play on every single team. Domas and DeMar are not. And they have a greater impact on the collective, if that makes sense. We should not be surprised that they have had some growing pains here and that it has taken them a while to figure out the offensive identity, the offensive, kind of dispersion of duties, and then defensively, how to make things happen. DeMar was never a strong defender, and now he's an older dude. That comes into play. So, yeah, I would probably agree with you that if there were a stock, it's a good time to buy because it feels like they are working, some of this stuff out a little bit.
And then watching it in real time too, Sam, seeing the move that they made to put Malik Monk in the starting lineup, it seems like the other part of the numerics, like that starting five now has been one of the best fives in the league, even in a short sample size. So again, I think it all hits that, will this age well? But right now, this might be the best stretch. And if it continues, then you can see a climb up for this team.
Yeah. And it's I agree with that. It's also again, some of the conversations that I had this week, what struck me, you mentioned Malik, Jason, and it's very easy to say, hey, put your best five on the floor, and Malik is clearly within that group. But man, when you this is why I don't think I'd be a very good coach, because you have got to see the puzzle pieces all the time in terms of rotations and staggering and the timeline and the 48-minute clock and who's playing with who, and if I take this guy out, then we lose our attacking mechanism, and if I take this guy out, we have no defense. That constant calculus that Malik makes harder, because yes, that five is going to be pretty good. You've got playmakers all over the floor. You've got dudes all over the floor, just guys that actually put a little fear in the opposing defense. And then you go to one of the lightest benches in the NBA, like that, that juggling act and trying to figure out how to not, have it be like the Nuggets where Jokic comes off the floor and they look like an AAU team. That is what, where Mike Brown's job is going to be even harder now because of the Malik decision.
Lastly, we've only got a minute here, but I just wanted to throw it at you. NBA Cup numbers down. Now you've got what? Atlanta, Oklahoma City, Milwaukee. I don't even know who the hell else is left. How your thoughts, if you're hearing anything on how the NBA is feeling about this NBA Cup in year two as opposed to year one?
Well, I mean, I'll have a much better sense of it next week. I'm going out there tomorrow. I am looking at my phone because I'm trying to steal perspective from my colleague, John Krasinski at The Athletic. This was discussed on Twitter last night, and I kind of agree with what he said. First of all, I didn't know the ratings are down, so I'm curious how down they are.
10%.
Okay. John's, so, we got to go. The paraphrasing is, John's opinion is that the money is in the bank when it comes to the league and the TV rights deal. So, make a long-term investment in just marketing the hell out of these small market teams and just start to broaden the spotlight within your league and not go for the short-term play of we're unhappy if the Lakers and the Knicks and teams like that are not always in the spotlight. That, it's kind of like make, chicken soup out of chicken, what, when it comes to the cup. OKC is going to be good for a very long time. You better figure out how to make mainstream basketball fans care about what the Thunder are doing, and ditto for some of these other teams. So down ratings is not great, but they got plenty of money in the bank, and they got to figure out how to make this work.
That is Sam Amick of The Athletic. Make sure you follow him on Twitter. I'm sure you already are. Check out The Athletic, where they've got all kinds of holiday deals going on right now where you are guaranteed to pay less than what I'm paying. But that's for 2 subscriptions because Mason's got one.
Baby. Blue Sky. I'm jumping to Blue Sky these days.
Oh, are you Sam Amick on Blue Sky?
I don't know. Just search for it. It shows up.
Yeah, because it's like sam.amick at bluesky.net.eth.org or whatever. They got to figure that out. But I'm with you, brother. Thank you. Appreciate you. Talk to you soon. And remember, everybody, Sam started the interview by saying the Kings are trading for Giannis. So make sure you take that to the bank. Appreciate you, dude.
See y'all. Be good.
Okay, take care. That's Sam Amick. We'll take a break when we return. 4 down territory. Belichick in North Carolina, Berlin, Germany.